amazing storytellers, conceptual artists, crazy about literature, and unique in their own ways. However, they are two sides of the same coin. In this episode, let's talk about how Soma Saito and Makoto Furukawa are essentially the same artist, or let's say they complement each other in a really unique way that will make you want more and more. So this is going to be the most unhinged episode ever. There's no script, and they are my two favorite singers among male SEIYUU, so be ready for a lot of gushing and detailed talk about their music and their singing style. So let's kick off this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge. I am your host Vanessa, and in this episode let's talk about how Makoto Furukawa and Soma Saito are two sides of the same coin, and this was an episode that was bound to happen. I was already teasing you for quite a long time about it. I think that I've been talking about this idea for 2 years here on the podcast as well as on monthly review. So finally, I get to talk about that since I wanted to workshop some themes around and think about interesting things to talk to you about. This one is one that I feel not only myself but a couple of other listeners and viewers here on the channel and also on the website have come across. That conclusion is that if you pay closer attention to the SEIYUU artists, especially the solo artists among male SEIYUU, Soma Saito and Makoto Furukawa are essentially doing the same thing but in different ways. They are essentially the same solo artist, but with a different twist. And I like this a whole lot because I love both, and I'm going to gush a lot about them in this episode. So be aware that I'm going to talk a little bit, or let's say I'm going to talk a lot about them in this episode. This is exclusively an episode about Makoto Furukawa and Soma Saito. So if this is not really your thing, maybe skip this episode. If you want to hear my unhinged theory and why I'm supporting that theory with a lot of arguments that I bring here in a post-it, stick around, of course. And I would love to know in the comments, what do you think about them as solo artists, if you enjoy their music or not? It's fair to not enjoy their music. Tastes are different. That's why there are different artists out there, because some may not cater to you, but others may. And I would love to know which is in case you are a fan of any of them, which are your favorite songs by them. I would love to know that in the comments. Of course, you already know I love both of them, and I would basically recommend all their music. But I will keep it simple, and I would say I would recommend from Makoto Furukawa the full From Fairy Tale album, and from Soma Saito I would fully recommend the entirety of My Beautiful Valentine. So that's the top suggestions by me. But let's dive into the episode and explore a little bit more this theory that I have that they are two sides of the same coin. I bring here a couple of arguments, or I bring you a couple of topics that I'm going to break this episode into. So we are going to talk about the music genres that they cover. I'm going to talk about as well their lyrics, writing style, and their influences when it comes to creating music and crafting music. Then we are going to talk about the fact that both love conceptual CDs or singles, and of course their admiration for each other because they are close friends and they actually admire each other's work. So this is actually not that far-fetched of a theory in some way, because they even have that bond between each other. Of course, that's me bringing something a bit more subjective, not as analytical as the other arguments, but let's see how it goes with my theory, since I'm making it or developing it on the spot. So let's see how it goes. Music genres and singing style. When it comes to this section, I would say they are polar opposites when it comes to the singing style. Because on one end, Soma Saito is a tenor with a crystal clear voice. He really excels in falsetto. On the other hand, Makoto Furukawa is a baritone. He really excels in vibrato. They are polar opposites here. So the two sides of the coin start appearing. Of course, when it comes to exploring the music genres, both are really massive fans of rock music. Makoto Furukawa is more of a rock fan than Soma Saito, because Soma Saito usually tends to showcase a wide variety of music genres and artists that he enjoys. Makoto Furukawa is more of a rock through and through type of fan. But still, both overlap when it comes to enjoying rock music and performing rock music as well. Interestingly enough, Soma Saito's career has been all about pop rock music, although it started a little bit with pop because Sakura Music really wanted to push it forward that he would be a solo artist that would be singing and dancing on stage. Thank God it doesn't happen because Soma Saito, I love him a whole lot, but he's not the best dancer out there. He does an amazing job. I wouldn't do what he does. So he actually shifted everything around when he released Quantum Stranger and took over his solo career. And from that point on, he started to be an indie rock artist. And his music is categorized as alternative rock by Sakura Music. He does a wide variety of music genres within rock, or the rock spectrum, but essentially he's a rock artist. So you have plenty of post-rock and shoegaze rock in his music. Sometimes you have a little bit of pop because he likes to play around with pop music, but pop isn't the main dish, let's say. It is a side dish when it comes to Soma Saito's music. Some of his best songs are actually pop, I would say. Vampire Weekend is pop through and through, but there are other songs that are amazing. Uzumibi is a good example of that. Palette is a good example of that. Those are hard-hitting rock songs, so he excels more on that genre, although he tries to basically do a little bit of everything. When it comes to Makoto Furukawa, he's mostly a jazz rock style of performer. Most of his repertoire is jazz music, through and through, because Atlantis actually wanted him to perform jazz. He has a powerful, rich, vivid, energetic voice that fits so well jazz music, and also he has that mature allure, and I would say his voice can be quite sexy, so it fits really well the genre. And it really enhances the idea that he performs a mature brand of jazz music. He also has plenty of rock songs going on in his repertoire, more so recently, and he has as well acid jazz, which is a fusion music genre that brings dance music, jazz and pop, and in some way even rock music into the mix. It is really a really interesting mashup that will keep you guessing. He also has ballads, and he really excels in ballads. Worth mentioning, Soma Saito recently, with Fictions, his third full-length album, he brought for the very first time ballads, but Makoto Furukawa has been doing that since the start. This is something that has been made by Makoto Furukawa in the past, so he does a little bit of everything. Jazz is the music genre that actually has marked him as a solo artist. That's the genre that you would say best defines him. When it comes to Soma Saito, the genre that best defines him is rock, especially indie rock. Right now, I would say shoegaze rock the most. When it comes to the singing style, they are polar opposites. When it comes to the music genres, they kind of overlap. I like that. I like to see them overlapping. For example, Soma Saito with Rhapsody Inferno tapped a little bit into jazz music. Makoto Furukawa from time to time actually explores emo rock and post-rock in his music. I like to find that, and I would love to see more of that in his repertoire. And he's a massive rock fan, so it is only a question of time until that happens. But I feel that they kind of complement each other. When it comes to the voice tones, the best that I got of them singing together was with Genesis in the Yumeirocast franchise. They are both part of the same group, and they are the leads in that group. When they harmonized with each other, it was heaven on earth. Honestly, I would love to see them working together again. Of course, I don't know if that is ever going to happen when it comes to singing, but what I heard there made me wish them to collaborate in some capacity. Their voices complement each other perfectly. It is rare to say that when it is with voice actors. You have two singers that have so much control over their vocals that right now, for example, Soma Saito always sounded really ethereal and angelic when it comes to these high notes. His vocal range is insane. I would say he's in an F sharp 5, I would say. He's really, really up there. He's really high when it comes to the vocal range. Makoto Furukawa would say he maybe has his vocal range within the 1 and the 3, perhaps the 4 as of late, because he has developed a little bit of a higher range. But Soma Saito mostly has a range between the 2 and the 5. I would reckon that he has a 6 in there with Ame no Niwa, because it goes insanely high in Ame no Niwa, but that remains to be seen. And once again, I'm doing this by ear. I'm not classically trained, so I cannot say for sure which is his vocal range, because I don't know how to read sheet music, so that's a massive problem in there. But maybe someone has already done that, or maybe you are listening to this episode and you already know, or you know how to do that, so let me know if you actually know their vocal range, but I would assume Makoto Furukawa is standing in the 2, 1, 1 between 1 and 3, and then Soma Saito is between the 2, possibly when he goes to that 4 baritone, and the 5, perhaps the 6, and I may be stretching a little bit with the 6. But I would say the F5 sharp would be his range. It is almost in the same range as Adam Levine from Maroon 5 and Vessel from Sleep Token, which is quite similar when it comes to going really high on their vocal range as tenors. This is my take on their music genres and singing style, so let's go to the next corner. This was something that I was not expecting. We are going to talk about the influences behind their music. And this was something that I was not expecting, because when I started to listen to Makoto Furukawa's music, I thought that since he was signed to Lantis, he was not going to write his own lyrics, because Lantis usually doesn't let their artists write their own music, with some exceptions, but usually they don't. And when Makoto Furukawa joined Lantis, he actually started writing his lyrics right away, which showed that he wanted to do that. He likes to write. And actually, in some of his interviews over the years, he has shared a couple of times that he loves to read, and he likes reading classical novels, and he likes to read a whole lot. He loves literature, so this is something that I was not expecting, honestly, to come from him. Then again, I didn't know too much about him, and only these interviews actually unveiled a little bit behind the man that is singing with that powerful voice, those really interesting, intricate lyrics. He's actually a really massive geek when it comes to literature. I was not expecting that. On the other hand, of course, we have a literature geek because Soma Saito has a degree in literature. So that already goes to show that he loves that a whole lot. At the same time, he writes, and he has been writing a whole lot in the past couple of years, not only his own serialization corners for various magazines, but also he has been writing a short story for a magazine, which is something completely aside from what other seiyuu do, but is also a seiyuu that is always talking about reading. He's always reading one book or another. He always has something to share when it comes to reading. He reads a wide variety of things. He has said before that he reads from literature to contemporary to even art books and architecture books as well. He likes reading a little bit of everything, with sci-fi actually being the thing that moves him the most. He likes those sci-fi books, and it influences a lot his lyrics in some capacity. Those two artists, Makoto Furukawa and Soma Saito, they actually are massive geeks about literature. This is a point that makes them, again, two sides of the same coin. They have that core of the literature, rich, intricate. They like to bring that to their stories. They like to develop that in their stories. And now I was thinking I'm going to create a lyrics section, but I'm going to talk about the lyrics right here, because they bring those influences from classical novels and everything else. I remember Haya no O is a Lord of the Flies kind of inspired song with Helicopter by Block Party as the main guitar riff inspired. So that's a mashup of influences in there when it comes to Brit rock as well as classical literature. And I love a whole lot how he created that sense of urgency that you find in the book, although he says that the song is not directly inspired by. When you listen to that song, you cannot make the parallels between that song and the last chapters of that book, because the frenetic rhythm of that song, it is well reflected in the frenetic rhythm of the writing in the last chapters into Lord of the Flies. So I would say it takes a lot of inspiration in literature when he writes the lyrics, but it also influences the way that he creates the songs. The songwriting itself is influenced by those books that he reads and those influences that he brings from literature. As a result, I feel that since he has such a rich background when it comes to literature, he brings a lot of influences. He likes to create really intricate stuff for us to uncover. I like this a whole lot because empty lyrics, straightforward lyrics is what pop music is all about. It is direct, straightforward. You don't need to digest that to understand it. You will understand it right off the bat. That's why pop music is addictive. It's because it is simple to understand. It is simple to assimilate. When it comes to Soma Saito's music, his music is not easy to understand. I will let you know this, especially if it is your first time listening to an episode of SEIYUU Lounge and you don't even know who Soma Saito is, or you know who he is but you never listen to his solo music. His music is not the easiest to get into. It's really complex. Since Quantum Stranger, the music is really complex, and it has only gotten more complex with each release. I would say Fictions is an exception to that, because Fictions is fairly straightforward, but within each story it still is quite intricate. So I would say that intricacy that he brings to his music is a reflection of how rich is his background when it comes to literature itself. At the same time, Makoto Furukawa brings really intricate lyrics to his music. I was not expecting how poetic he sounds at times, and even the parallels, the things that he brings in terms of the structure of the poems that he writes, which end up being the lyrics to his songs. It's really interesting what he does in there, how he plays around with the way that he's going to sing something, how he wants to bring tension and drama to something, and how he wants to convey certain emotions through his writing. I really love all of that. And I love how he approaches the lyrics and even the concepts that he creates with a really interesting literature lens. He's not as complex as Soma Saito, that's a given, but he still does really awesome things that you wouldn't expect from a jazz artist, because jazz music is still not that complex when it comes to the lyrics. It is a genre that is really complex in the instrumental, not the vocals. But Makoto Furukawa actually made a really interesting combo of the instrumentals are really complex, but also the vocals are equally complex. And it is complex in the way that it is still quite enjoyable. You will want to dive into the lyrics, try to understand the story, especially from Fairy Tail. It is really the opening of a book. It starts opening a book and it ends with the book closing, and you go through a journey with each song being a chapter in that fairy tale that he crafted. You are going to experience it throughout each song. And I like that he created arcs within that CD itself. You can feel, you can understand the arcs, especially if you have that sensibility as a reader. You will understand the arcs, the story arcs that he brought into that CD. It is really delicious to listen to a CD like that, that feels like reading a book. Same thing for Soma Saito. I would say My Beautiful Valentine, Yin Yang, In Bloom are the three best CDs that Soma Saito has. Those feel like reading a book from start to finish. Quantum Stranger is a collection of songs scattered, because most of it was songs that were previously released and were written and composed by different people, not himself. And Fictions feels like a collection of standalones of short stories within a compilation, an anthology, let's say. So it is slightly different in tone, and there isn't necessarily a overarching concept. So now let's go and let's talk about the concepts. When it comes to creating conceptual music, we'll look at solo artists among male seiyuu, and some seiyuu may say, well, this single has this concept, and you will notice it is something really straightforward. It is something without any depth. It is something that pop artists do. So in this CD, I'm going to have a different shirt, and I'm going to look like a bad boy, or in this CD, I'm going to look like really sexy, and that's the concept. That's a concept that's valid, but it's not something with depth. And here you have that. Soma Saito is usually all about dark and exploring the darkness within a person. He likes to bring a lot of sci-fi into his music. He likes to make or to leave questions that will make you question your existence, make you question the storytelling itself. And I like that a whole lot. So that concepts can usually have a sci-fi edge to themselves. I would say all of them have a sci-fi edge to themselves. But then they have an overarching theme that may be the main concept to the CD. I would say, for example, In Bloom is about loss and mental health in the most part, I would say. If you listen to it carefully, you will understand that. But if you go to My Beautiful Valentine, the concept is the surrealism behind romance, love. And that's quite interesting as a concept itself. Yin Yang is about two sides of the same person. The good and the bad coexist. How do they coexist? Is there any clashing? So those two, or I would say those three CDs have really well-defined concepts that are really strong, and I've yet to see a seiyuu artist topping that complexity, that overarching complexity within a CD, in which each song is a chapter in a story of one character that you are following since the start. and that sometimes it is subverted on you, in which you are actually that character since the start and you didn't even notice until you reach the bonus track, which is usually the twist in the story, that epilogue that will leave with you basically with the mouth ajar. So he really likes that complexity. He likes to pull the rug off of you. He likes to play around with you. He likes to make you feel comfortable, and then he's going to subvert everything around you. He's going to crank up the emotions to the maximum. The more you go into a CD by Soma Saito, the darker it gets, the more emotional it gets, but also the closest he is to you to hold your hand so that you don't get lost in that darkness. That's something that I really like about how he creates the music and how he vocalizes everything, how he is so present as a narrator and as a singer, and how he is actually making sure that you are part of the story without losing yourself in the story. That's really crafty as a singer-songwriter to really do that. And I really, when I pay close attention, and stripping him away from the tag of saying that he is a SEIYUU. If I didn't know if he was a SEIYUU, I would say that he's a really crafty, really top-tier singer-songwriter, period. There's nothing else to add here. He's a really top-tier singer-songwriter. He does an amazing job creating the worlds that you are going to experience in those CDs. He does an amazing job crafting those intricate melodies that will keep you guessing, that will make you question things. Why was that snare with a different tuning from the previous one within the same song? Why did he actually laugh in this specific part? Why did he actually break the fourth wall and stop talking in third person and start addressing you in the first person? So he does a lot of that to keep you invested, to subvert things, to make you part of the story. It's really engaging. I find it so fascinating what he does when it comes to the lyrics and how he creates those concepts and extrapolates on the concept to develop a really well fleshed out story with interwoven chapters in which each chapter is one song. And then you wrap it up so neatly with that twist in the bonus track that usually will subvert everything that you thought that you knew in that song or in that album or that EP. Everything that you thought you knew, he actually subverted it, and now you need to listen to it again to understand the true meaning and the true story that you were listening to. Because what you thought was real, what you thought was the story, actually wasn't. This is genius, pure genius. Sorry, but if we have to talk about the best singer, when it comes to the best singer-songwriter among male SEIYUU, Soma Saito is the one. That's easily a title that I can give him, knowing that this isn't being given to him because of my bias, it is because of his natural talent. On the other hand, we have Makoto Furukawa. He has tried a couple of concepts over time. Of course, he isn't as detailed as Soma Saito, and he only really went with a massive concept from Fairy Tail, the storytelling around creating a fairy tale for you to explore, for you to dive into, to go through that story. I feel that in some way the story is mainly around that Cinderella style of thing, of not being well treated and then actually subverting everything else, and now they get their comeuppance, and now you get everything that you deserved, and that story is going to be developed throughout every song in that album. One thing that I like is that he has an intro and he has an outro to the album. He also has an intermission that tells you that you are changing arcs within that specific CD, which is something that you wouldn't normally have, but there are times in which you listen to a song and you notice that the ending is creating that intermission, and it is a really interesting way to do so. When it comes to the lyrics, he actually brings those lyrics and those concepts to life in a really crafty way. I would love to see him doing more of that, because Makoto Furukawa has so much talent when it comes to the writing of the lyrics that I would love to see which other concepts would he create beyond the From Fairy Tail concept, which is the fairy tale, and the most recent seasonal concept, or the 4 seasons concept that he brought recently. I would love to see what he actually can develop from there, because he has the talent. He was really crafty in From Fairy Tail. I was begging for more when that CD released, and honestly, another thing that you may not know is that From Fairy Tail and Soma Saito's In Bloom were released in the same day in 2020. They were released on the 23rd of December 2020. There's another side to them, of course, another coincidence, let's say, in which they overlap yet again. They released two, I would say, the two most influential concept albums by male SEIYUU, and I would say most influential albums by male SEIYUU in that year, in the same day, both of them. They are friends, they were actually exchanging CDs between them, and they actually had an interview later on talking about how much they admired each other. So let's go to that section to talk a bit about their admiration for each other. When it comes to the admiration for each other, they have said that countless times in drama CDs, in the part that is dedicated to the commentary, especially in BL drama CDs because they are working together plenty of times in BL. But they have said countless times how much they admire each other when it comes to the voice acting. But also there was an interview back in 2020 around the time that In Bloom and From Fairy Tail released, in which both of them were talking about how much they admired each other, especially Soma Saito saying that he would love to have and he really is jealous of how much vibrato Makoto Furukawa has naturally. Whereas Makoto Furukawa was actually saying that he didn't want that much vibrato, he would love to have a crystal clear, beautiful voice like Soma Saito has. So they admire each other when it comes to the singing and their range itself. Soma Saito would love to have more vibrato to himself. He has been trying and training a lot. He does have a fake vibrato that he uses plenty of times. But recently, he actually pulled off a little bit of vibrato in his tenor voice, which is amazing. Really, something that he had never done before, and it is so freaking difficult to pull off that is really admirable how he actually ended up developing that and pulling that off when recording. I don't know if that is going to be possible to pull off live, but I would love to see him pull that off live. Then we have Makoto Furukawa, and he actually has a really warm baritone voice with a lot of vibrato. He wanted to have those crystal clear high notes by Soma Saito, or that Soma Saito has, and he has actually developed his voice to a point that he can, and is showing in his solo career some glimpses of falsetto, which is not easy to achieve when you are a male singer with a baritone range. Falsetto is not necessarily something that is easy to achieve, but he has actually been training himself to reach those high notes and to start belting in his songs, and he is sounding amazing. So in some way, their admiration for each other when it comes to the singing style and the singing tone ended up helping both of them developing things that they wanted from the other, and they are now sounding more complete than ever, both of them. Soma Saito now has a bit of vibrato, although it is a fake vibrato most of the times. It is done by bobbing your head and it's not coming from within. It is still a vibrato. He does it, he mimics it, and it works. It's not a full-on vibrato, really warm, really powerful like Makoto Furukawa has, but it's still a thing. On the other hand, Makoto Furukawa is actually trying to pull off those high notes, and he has been perfecting those high notes. He's a beast when it comes to the voice being really low and really powerful, but now he's adding that ethereal edge to his voice, which is so unique to see in a baritone. There's nothing more charming than listening to a baritone with a really warm, cozy voice, then breaking into those high notes and leaving you with your mouth ajar. Really, it is something that really makes you wonder what is his limit to that talent. What more is there for him to explore? Because if he can pull that off, what more is there for him to explore? What more can he bring to his skill set and improve his performances and give something so unique, so his, that you will instantly tell this is a Makoto Furukawa performance through and through. He's not copying anyone. It is his signature style, and he's creating his signature style as a singer. He already has, but he's perfecting it. And now having that vibrato with a little bit of falsetto is unbelievable. It's really, really good to have. So in some way, they have publicly admired each other and admired each other's voices and technique, and they are close friends. They have worked countless times before. They tend to mention each other at times. So this is something that is really, really cool to see. Once again, it further emphasizes the idea that they are two sides of the same coin. They are two really intricate singer-songwriters. Makoto Furukawa has yet to write a song, but I would say as a whole, they are really intricate creators. When it comes to writing lyrics, both are unbelievably good. The best among male SEIYUU, period. Once again, I'm not going to discuss this one. When it comes to lyrics writing, these two are the best, period. When it comes to songwriting itself, Soma Saito is one of the best, I would say, if not the best. I would put him alongside Toshiyuki Toyonaga. Once again, Soma Saito and Makoto Furukawa are two sides of the same coin. I'm going to keep saying these. I just laid out to you the facts. I would love to see you creating your own theories coming from here. This was a really long episode. I'm not going to extend too much, but as you could tell, I really went off when it comes to talking about Makoto Furukawa and Soma Saito, my all-time favorite singers among male SEIYUU. I love them to bits. I have all their CDs, so that's a given that I love them. And I really enjoy how crafty they are. They are creating stories that I want to dive in, that I want to read, that I would love to see in a book. And they make me think and they make me want to stop and theorize about their music. What their lyrics mean, what is the underlying meaning, what is the concept, what is the thing that they are going to surprise me with, what is going to be the twist. I love how they craft their music, I love how they compose their music, I love the way they approach music as a solo artist. And among male SEIYUU, they are the only ones that are fully conceptual, I would say, and really straightforward when it comes to they are doing and sticking to what they like from start to finish. They haven't changed too much the music genres that they explore, although there are other artists that actually do the same. They don't do that with the added pressure of pulling off concepts with then their really intricate sound that is also there to begin with. That's crazy what they pull off, how intricate they can be. Their literature influences certainly are the massive influence to what they do, what they create. They are really geeky about that, and they bring that geekiness to the way they craft their lyrics. Soma Saito is a bona fide, high-quality storyteller. He is really fit to be an author. The way that he writes those lyrics, he is writing a story to you from start to finish. Makoto Furukawa is slightly different in vibe. I would say he's a really good poet. I wouldn't say he is an author, because the way that he crafts his stories is not meant to include you in the story. It's more meant for you to enjoy a story. You are seeing it from the other side, you are seeing from outside, and you are actually diving into scattered ideas that also fit together, but they are not as intricate sound and lyrics wise, but still both of them are amazing. Most intricate singer-songwriters among male SEIYUU. The two ones that are really conceptual from start to finish. Every single CD is really conceptual. When they dive into a conceptual series itself or go all in with a conceptual EP, they know how to pull it off in a way that you want to dive into that story. There's no way around it. As soon as the song starts playing, you are already theorizing what is going to come next, what is going to develop in the next chapter, which is to say the next song. They keep you on your toes. You want to listen to more, you want to learn more, you want to dive into the next chapter, another one. It's almost that feeling of reading a really good book in which you cannot put it down because the chapter is so good that you feel that the next one is going to be even better, and they can pull off that in their CDs. That's the same feeling with their music. Of course, this makes them quite niche because people coming across their music want to listen perhaps one or two songs to see if they like their music, and if they come across music, for example, in From Fairytale, or music from My Beautiful Valentine, or In Bloom, or Yin Yang, they may listen to the songs scattered and they may not even feel how deep that those songs go, because they are listening to them outside of the concept, outside of the storytelling that was created. Yes, the songs work standalone, but to understand it fully, you need to know the story, you need to be into the story, and most people that come across their music may not even know how intricate is the music of these two SEIYUU artists, because it is extremely intricate. I would say that's all that I have to say about Makoto Furukawa and Soma Saito being two sides of the same coin. I would love to know what you think about this theory, and since I gave you some facts to actually theorize yourself, I would love to know your theories about this one, because they really sound like they are two sides of the same coin. They are creating music at such a high level that only the two of them are doing that. No one else is actually daring even to try that, what they are doing. Mostly because what they are doing is not trendy, as such is not going to sell a lot, but also because what they are doing is so complex that it's not worth it, the money and the time that they are investing in creating a concept and then creating everything intricate around it, if they don't get a payoff from that. Because artists, of course, they don't create art for you to enjoy for free. They need to be paid. So some people, some artists will weigh the pros and cons of creating a concept, and maybe they will hold off from creating a concept because that's something that really needs a lot of planning behind. It needs to be really well crafted when it comes to the music and the lyrics, and not everyone wants to go through that. So these two artists, these two solo artists are the only ones doing these, and doing these really, really well. Because one thing is to pull off a concept, another is to actually craft the concept, develop the concept, and accomplish what you wanted with that concept from start to finish, seeing as the concepts themselves are not simple to begin with. So yeah. Now it's time, of course, to put you on the spotlight, and I would love to know what you think about this theory of mine of Makoto Furukawa and Soma Saito being the two sides of the same coin, and the fact that they are the only ones creating really, really interesting conceptual music with intricate lyrics that you want to dive more into, that feel like reading a book, that you want to actually listen to more and more, as if you were reading a book and the chapters are getting better with each one that comes. So yeah, I would love to know that, and of course let me know in the comments on YouTube, and remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of SEIYUU Lounge. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the Hand That Feeds HQ's weekly male SEIYUU and music related content, hit the subscribe button. And if you are listening to this episode on a podcast listening platform, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. Leaving a review is really simple and helps other people find this podcast and fall in love with male SEIYUU artists and 2D groups. I'll return next week with another episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Thank you for listening, and see you guys around.